They say betrayal doesn't happen in an instant. It creeps in, hidden in the shadows of trust, until one day it rips your world apart. I learned that the hard way with a single message that shattered everything I believed in. I was living what I thought was the dream. My wife, Angela, and I had been married for 10 years. We had a beautiful home, a bright and happy child, and a routine that, while busy, felt solid. She worked as a project manager for a well-known company, and I managed a thriving family business. Life wasn't perfect. Whose is? But I believed we were one of the lucky couples who had figured out how to make it work. But now, as I sit here, I realize just how blind I was. Looking back, the signs were there. Small, almost invisible cracks that I brushed off as nothing. Angela had always been a hard worker, so when she started staying late at the office more often, I chalked it up to her dedication. She began paying more attention to her appearance, wearing makeup more frequently and buying expensive perfumes. I teased her about it, saying, "Who are you trying to impress?" She laughed it off, saying it was for herself. I never thought anything of it. After all, I trusted her. Infidelity wasn't even a word in my vocabulary when I thought of Angela. But then came that night. A seemingly normal evening after putting our son to bed, I was scrolling through my phone when a message popped up from an unknown number. The sender? Someone who would later reveal themselves as Angela's co-worker. The message read, "You deserve to know the truth." Attached are several photos, Angela and her boss, Paul, laughing together at a restaurant. A second photo of them walking into a hotel. And the final blow, a blurry but unmistakable image of them standing too close, in a way no married woman should stand with another man. For a moment I couldn't breathe. But instead of confronting Angela right away, something in me snapped into focus. I needed the truth. To some extent, I felt these photos might not be real. I needed answers, real, undeniable proof. So I stayed silent, playing the part of the oblivious husband, while inside my world was already falling apart. The following week, I did what I thought any man in my position would do. I hired a private investigator. The PI, a man named Carl, didn't waste time. He was sharp, no nonsense, and knew exactly how to dig for information. Carl set up discreet surveillance on Angela, tracking her movements during those late nights at work. Within just a week, he came back with details that made my blood boil. Photos clear as day. In all of these images, they were inappropriate for a married lady. What will a married woman be doing in a hotel with her boss? My stomach churned as Carl handed over every piece of evidence. Detailed notes, timestamps, and even records of her phone calls to him during hours she was supposed to be working. It was all there, proof I couldn't ignore no matter how much I wanted to. After Carl's report, I started paying closer attention to Angela at home. I didn't say anything yet, but I watched. I noticed how often she glanced nervously at her phone, quickly swiping away notifications. I noticed how her late meetings were becoming a near-daily occurrence. Her excuses became clumsier too. One night, she came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. When I asked about it, she laughed it off, saying a coworker had sprayed too much perfume in the office. Another time, she claimed she had a last-minute team-building dinner, but came back hours after restaurants had closed. One evening, I couldn't hold back anymore. I asked her directly, "Why are you working so late these days? You never used to before." She didn't even flinch. "I'm trying to prove myself," she said, her tone almost rehearsed. "You know how competitive my field is. I'm doing this for us, for our future." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But her deflection only made me more certain. She wasn't doing this for us, she was doing it for him. That night, after Angela went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the photos Carl had given me. I thought about our life together, the good parts, the parts one thought were unshakable. I remembered the first time we met, and how she used to light up every room she walked into. On our wedding day, when she promised to stand by me no matter what. The day we brought our child home from the hospital, both of us were so scared and so excited at the same time. How had it come to this? Where did I go wrong? Was I not enough for her? I looked at the pictures again, and the love in her eyes, the love that used to be for me, was now for someone else. It was like losing her twice, first in the real world and then in my memories. But instead of breaking me, it made me stronger. If she was going to betray me, I would make sure she faced the consequences. No matter what. Weeks after my confirmation about Angela's affair with her boss, Paul started pulling away. He wasn't calling her as much, and their late meetings suddenly became fewer and farther between. On the surface, it might have looked like he was losing interest. But I would soon learn his actions were far more calculated than that. Instead of ending things cleanly, Paul turned the tables. He began to blackmail Angela. I later found out that he had explicit photos and messages saved from their private moments. He threatened to release them to her co-workers and even post them online if word about their relationship ever got out. He told her that if she dared to speak up, he would ruin her reputation and career. Angela was trapped, and it showed. She started snapping at me and our child over the smallest things at home. Her paranoia bled into every part of her life. I could see the weight of her guilt and fear pressing down on her, but she refused to admit anything. I wasn't blind to Angela's anxiety. She was trying so hard to act normal, but the cracks were obvious. When I'd ask her if everything was okay, she'd force a smile and give me some half-baked excuse about work stress. But I wasn't buying it. Instead of confronting her, I decided to play the long game. So, I stayed quiet and watched her unravel. I started collecting my own evidence. I got into her phone while she was in the shower one night. It didn't take much, she still had the same password. From there, I started taking screenshots of everything. Her texts with Paul, call logs, and even some incriminating images they'd exchanged. Each new discovery only fueled my anger, but I kept it bottled up. I didn't lash out, I didn't yell, I didn't even hint that I knew what was going on. The calmer I stayed, the more careless Angela became, and that worked in my favor. Meanwhile, I reached out to a lawyer. I didn't want to confront her without full preparation. I needed to protect myself and our child. I explained everything to the attorney, the affair, the evidence I'd gathered, and my concerns about how this would affect our family. Together, we started building a case for divorce and full custody. Inside, I was boiling with rage, but on the outside, I was ice cold. Angela had no idea that I was already laying the groundwork to cut her out of our lives completely. I wasn't just preparing for the end of our marriage, I was preparing to take everything she had left. I had been quietly gathering evidence, preparing to confront Angela when the time was right. But Paul, her boss and lover, acted first. It seemed he had caught wind of my investigation, and instead of waiting to be exposed, he decided to flip the script. He leaked several explicit messages and photos of their affair online, carefully curated to make it look like Angela was the one chasing him. The images and messages painted a picture of her as the seducer, someone desperate and reckless. Paul didn't stop there. He spun a story to his wife and colleagues, claiming that Angela had been pursuing him relentlessly, even threatening his career if he didn't comply. His lies spread like wildfire, and the narrative of Angela being the instigator took root before she even knew what hit her. The fallout was swift and brutal. Our once quiet home became a circus of whispers and judgment. Everywhere she turned, someone was talking about her affair. It wasn't just whispers though. The scandal spread through her workplace, where management couldn't ignore the public spectacle. Angela was called into a disciplinary hearing, and despite her tearful attempts to defend herself, the evidence, carefully crafted by Paul, was damning. They fired her on the spot, citing gross misconduct and damage to the company's reputation. Angela's humiliation didn't stop there. Friends who used to adore her suddenly stopped calling. Family members who once supported her turned cold, offering only curt, judgmental words. Even our neighbors started looking at her with a mix of pity and disdain. She became a pariah in her own life, isolated and stripped of the confidence she once carried so effortlessly. I waited for the storm to settle slightly before I confronted her. By then, I had all the evidence I needed, not just from Paul's leaks but from my meticulous investigation. I laid everything out on the living room table a day after she was laid off. Printouts of her texts, screenshots from her secret phone, and the private investigator's photos of her meetings with Paul. When Angela walked into the room and saw the evidence, her face crumbled. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Finally, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Between her cries, she begged for forgiveness, claiming that Paul had manipulated her, that she never meant for it to go this far, and that she was only human. Her words fell flat. I had given her my trust, my love, and my loyalty, and she had thrown it all away for a fling with her boss. I told her as much, my voice calm but cold. Angela, this isn't just about the affair. It's about the lies, the betrayal, and the embarrassment you've brought to this family. I've already filed for divorce. I'm also seeking full custody of our child. You need to face the consequences of your choices. Her sobs grew louder as she fell to her knees, clutching at my leg and pleading for another chance. But I had made up my mind. For the sake of my child and my own sanity, I had to walk away. Angela had made her bed and now she had to lie in it, alone. I sat in the courtroom that day with my lawyer by my side, my hands gripping the edge of the wooden table in front of me. The air was thick with tension as Angela sat across from me. Her once confident demeanor had crumbled. She looked pale, nervous, and utterly defeated, clutching at tissue as though it was the only thing holding her together. Angela's lawyer argued that she deserved shared custody of our child. They painted her as a loving mother who had made a mistake but was still capable of raising a child. I could feel her eyes darting toward me, hoping for some kind of sympathy. But there was none. Not after what she'd done. When it was my lawyer's turn, he stood up calmly and laid out the evidence. The explicit messages, the photos, the lies, it was all there, clear for everyone in the room to see. The judge's expression remained neutral, but I saw the slight tightening of his jaw when the most damning evidence was presented. The leaked photos and texts between Angela and her boss. It was clear these weren't the actions of a responsible mother, and my lawyer made sure the judge understood how damaging Angela's behavior could be to our child's well-being. Angela tried to speak at one point, her voice trembling as she claimed she was manipulated by her boss and didn't intend for things to go this far. But her excuses sounded hollow. Even her lawyer seemed to know the fight was slipping away from them. The judge looked directly at me, then at Angela. This court finds it in the best interest of the child to grant sole custody to the father. The words hit like a hammer. Angela let out a muffled sob, covering her face with her hands, but there was no outburst, no drama, just a quiet, painful defeat. At first, our child didn't fully understand what had happened. Kids are perceptive though, and it didn't take long for them to sense the tension. I had to explain in the gentlest way possible that Mommy had made choices that hurt our family and that it was best if they stayed with me for now. Angela tried reaching out to our child. She called, sent messages, and even tried showing up at school events, but the distance between them grew with every attempt. "Why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore?" my child asked one evening. The innocence in his voice cut deep, but I stayed honest. Sometimes people make choices that hurt the ones they love. It doesn't mean she doesn't care about you, but right now, I need to make sure you're safe and happy. Our child began refusing to speak to Angela altogether. When Angela showed up unannounced at one of their soccer games, our child turned away and ran to me. Angela stood there, frozen, tears streaming down her face as she watched from a distance. She didn't try to come closer. I could see the pain etched on her face every time she tried to reconnect, but the damage was done. Our child felt betrayed, confused, and angry, all feelings a mother should never evoke in her child. And I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. This was the consequence of her actions, and I wasn't going to shield her from it. Angela was left alone, truly alone, with nothing but the memories of what she had lost. The house, her career, her reputation, and now her child. She had gambled with her life, her family, and her future, and lost it all. The shame was too much for them to bear, and Angela found herself completely alone. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she had moved into a run-down apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't anything like the home we once shared, just a cramped, dimly lit space with peeling walls and broken appliances. She took on a job as a waitress at a small diner, barely making enough to cover her rent. Angela, who once enjoyed expensive dinners and luxury vacations, now spent her days serving coffee and cleaning tables. She tried to contact me several times. First, through calls and messages, begging for a chance to explain herself. Then she sent emails pleading for forgiveness, saying she wanted to see our child. I ignored them all. I wasn't ready to open the door for someone who had shattered the trust one had in her. My priority was protecting my child from the chaos she had brought into our lives. From what I could gather, Angela eventually stopped trying to reach out. It seemed like she had finally accepted that she needed to face the consequences of her actions. A few months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was in her handwriting, and I could tell from the smudged ink that she had been crying while writing it. In the letter, Angela admitted to everything. She confessed that she had made the worst mistake of her life by falling for Paul's empty promises. She wrote about how she felt flattered and special when he showed her attention, but how it all spiraled out of control when he started manipulating her. She blamed herself for not walking away when she had the chance. She also apologized to me and, more importantly, to our child. She admitted that she had been selfish and short-sighted, that she hadn't considered how her actions would hurt the people who loved her the most. Her words were raw and filled with guilt, but they came too late. Angela ended the letter by saying she hoped one day our child could forgive her, even if I never did. She said she was working on becoming a better person and would spend the rest of her life trying to make amends, even if we never gave her another chance. Reading her letter didn't make the pain go away. It didn't fix the damage she caused or change the fact that our lives were better without her. But it made me realize one thing: Angela was finally starting to understand the weight of her choices. Whether she could ever rebuild her life or not wasn't my concern anymore. My focus remained on creating a safe and stable environment for my child. A life free from lies and betrayal. After the divorce was finalized, my life became a blur of responsibilities. I was now a single father, and every moment of my day revolved around my little boy. At first, it was overwhelming. Balancing work, school runs, and the emotional weight of what had happened felt like carrying the world on my shoulders. But as time went on, I started to find a rhythm. My son, bless his heart, made it easier. Letting go of Angela wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt a pang of pity for her. I refused to let bitterness define me. I had to be a role model for my son. I didn't want him to grow up thinking that love meant pain or that forgiveness was a weakness. I wanted him to see his dad as someone who could weather life's storms and still stand tall. I thought I had seen it all after Angela's affair came crashing down, but karma has a way of working that even I couldn't predict. It didn't just end with my wife's public disgrace. Oh no, her boss, Paul, would soon pay for his part in this mess, and when I say pay, I mean it ruined him. It started a few weeks after Angela's photos and messages went viral. Word had spread like wildfire. Paul's wife wasn't just angry, she was fed up. Turns out this wasn't Paul's first affair, but it was the last straw. She didn't waste time. She packed her things, took the kids, and filed for divorce almost immediately. And she didn't stop there, she made sure everyone knew why. She leaked her own statement online, exposing Paul as a serial cheater. But she didn't stop with public humiliation. She went after Paul where it hurt most, his wallet. She filed for everything: child support, alimony, and a share of their marital assets. Paul, who had once flaunted his perfect life, was now drowning in legal fees and fighting to keep his house. And if you thought his personal life was bad, just wait till you hear what happened at work. After the investigation at the office, Angela was relieved of her job, but Paul didn't go free. He wasn't just an employee, he was in a leadership position, and they expected him to uphold some level of integrity. Instead, he had turned their company into the center of a scandal. The higher-ups at his job couldn't sweep it under the rug. Within 2 months, Paul was demoted. His flashy corner office was replaced with a smaller desk in the far corner of the building, where no one paid him any attention. Eventually, the company decided he was more of a liability than an asset. They gave him a choice: resign quietly or face public dismissal. He resigned, tail between his legs, with no job prospects left. Paul, the man who thought he could have it all, my wife, his position, his reputation, ended up losing everything. It's funny how life works. He tried to save his marriage by framing Angela as the aggressor, but in the end, his wife walked out on him. He tried to protect his job, but his actions were the very thing that destroyed his career. I didn't have to lift a finger to destroy Paul. He did it all himself. And I won't lie, there was a certain satisfaction in watching his world crumble. It was karma doing its work, and I was just a spectator. Sometimes, the universe has a way of balancing the scales. Paul's downfall was proof of that.